Hi guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. I am back with another too large unboxing video. I knew my self-control could only last me so long. There was just too many new releases I've had my eye on, and I'm so excited to add all of them to my shelf and hopefully get to them soon. But without further ado, let's go ahead and begin the unboxing. The first set of books are of course from Book of the Month, who I am also partnering up with for this video. I'm gonna be honest, the books for Book of the Month this month were so incredible. I wanted all of them. Before we dive into the books themselves, first a little bit more about Book of the Month. If you're not familiar, Book of the Month is an online bookish subscription service. Every single month they curate a selection of titles from a variety of different authors and voices in the community. Always new releases, always hardcover, and always sent directly to your door. I have found so many incredible titles through Book of the Month, through genres I know and love, but also I feel like they constantly push me out of my own comfort zone. That being said, if you are uninterested in any titles, it's super easy to skip. And if you use my code PeruseProject, you're able to get your first box for only $9.99, an absolute steal. But without further ado, let's go ahead and chat about my two selects that I have for this month. The first one is one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and I'm so excited to finally have it in my hands. And that is The Adventures of Amina AlSarafi by S.A. Chakraborty. S.A. Chakraborty is one of my all-time favorite authors, so for her to release a first book in an all-new fantasy series, I truly could not be more excited about. This is all about seafaring and pirates, and it just sounds like an adventure from page one. In it, we follow our main character, Amina AlSarafi, and she is kind of on the sunset of her career. She's one of the most notorious and most dangerous pirates in all of the Indian Ocean. She's kind of ready to start the next chapter of her life. That is until a wealthy individual who is also the mother of one of her previous crewmates comes to her and beseeches her to help her find her lost son, and also offers her a lot of money. And now Amina AlSarafi finds herself on one last adventure for a lot of gold. I love the concept of this. I love that it's kind of, again, a seafaring fantasy situation. I also love that Amina is an experienced character. I feel like older characters in fantasy, especially older female characters, is not so easy to come by. So I'm just so excited about this. It's such a beautiful book, and to get this for only $9.99 is honestly a steal. I can't wait. I can't wait to read this. I'll be reading this as soon as possible. A stunning book, an incredible new release. I'm so excited. Then the next book I selected just sounded addicting, if I'm being honest, and that is Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. This is all about like obnoxious one percenters set in New York City. We follow a variety of characters as they're all kind of involved and intermixing with various families in the city. The first character we follow is Darlie, who comes from a very well-connected old Stockton family, but she gives up her job and connections for love and the pursuit of motherhood. We also follow Sasha, a middle-class New England girl who marries into a very wealthy Brooklyn Heights family. And then lastly, Georgina, the baby of the family who has fallen in love with someone she shouldn't. Again, I think this is a multi-POV book. I think the society elements of this and probably the ridiculous elements of this just sounds like it's going to be really entertaining. Apparently it's witty and smart and interesting. And I also love the cover, if I'm being honest. This was one of the most like anticipated releases for this spring in the literary fiction genre, so needless to say, thrilled to be adding this to my shelf. I will be hopefully reading this soon as well. Okay, those are the two books I've picked out from Book of the Month this month. Again, I'll have a link down to their site as well as my offer code down below if you're interested in using it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the rest of the books I've picked up recently. First up, I have some very anticipated fantasy pre-orders that I finally have in my hand. Honestly, I jumped into right away, which I'm rather proud of myself about. First is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. This is the much anticipated prequel novel to Priory of the Orange Tree. This book is truly ginormous, but it's also only one book, and apparently you can actually read this in any order, so you can start with the prequel or start with Priory. It doesn't matter kind of where you begin. I've already actually read this and documented the entire reading experience via a reading vlog if you're interested in seeing my thoughts and feelings. This book is set in a fantasy world comprised of many different kingdoms. In this fantasy landscape, there's also these things called wrens, and these wrens kind of came with fire and destruction, and many years ago, the most powerful wren, called the Nameless One, was destroyed and kind of put to sleep. Now all of these kingdoms have evolved through time and also have taken this lore and interpreted it in different ways, resulting in various religions and kind of philosophies and also differing political realities for all of them. In this book, we follow a variety of perspectives, all from different kingdoms across this land, as they have to take on insurmountable expectations, power, all sorts of different quests and journeys that are very, very parallel perilous. This book also very much centers motherhood, which was very interesting, but nevertheless, this came out at the very tail end of February, pre-ordered, came in the mail, excited to finally have it in my hands. I also have the Tyranny of Faith by Richard Swan. This is the sequel to The Justice of Kings, one of my favorite like debut new fantasy series that I read last year. And oh my gosh, I also jumped right into this book and it is incredible. The Justice of Kings is just the coolest combination of like law and thriller with a fantasy landscape. The characters are fantastic and just conceptually it's such a smart read. But in it we are introduced to the Empire of the Wolf, and here there are individuals called justices that roam the countryside and are given kind of the power of the emperor to investigate and also act as the judge and executioner for crimes. We follow one of the most powerful justices, Sir Conrad von Volt, who is a very notorious man who also has a lot of magical powers. But the story is not from his point of view, but instead his female apprentice, Helena. Helena is also writing the story from the future as kind of a reflective piece, documenting, one, in the first book, the case that kind of acted as the spark to what inevitably is like the most insane combination of political situations you see unravel throughout the series. It's so smart, it's so interesting, great humor, just so thoughtfully done. Obviously the sequel just came out, another immediate pre-order and purchase for me, and I'm so excited about it. Speaking of pre-orders, I also pre-ordered this fantasy book, but it ended up being so unbelievably tiny, and that is The Crane Husband by Kelly Barnhill. I love Kelly Barnhill. I've read numerous of her books, When Women Were Dragons, and also her middle grade stories. She has such great writing, such interesting writing. So I saw this and I was like, yes, immediate buy. It's literally only 100 pages and this book was like over $20. I digress. I was just a little shocked when I opened the package. I should have checked the page length, but I was expecting something much longer. This book is also $27 in Canada. And in this story, we follow a 15-year-old teenager who acts as the backbone to her Midwestern family. She budgets, she cooks, she cleans, she watches her younger siblings as her mother, who is an artist, weaves beautiful tapestries. But everything is sort of thrown upside down when her mother one day brings home a 6-foot-tall crane, and she is powerless as he kind of inserts himself into the family situation. Obviously, Kelly Barnhill's using a lot of imagery and metaphor, but this story sounds beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. I feel like Kelly Barnhill always has very strange ways to illustrate such heartbreaking realities. Personally, always just resonate with me. I really love her writing style, and I'm curious about this. I obviously am excited to read it. I will be reading it. It'll take me probably 45 minutes, but looking forward to it nonetheless. Alrighty, let's open up some more of these boxes. This is this very strange box, but ooh. Well, let's see what's inside. Okay, so I'm so excited about this book. I feel like I'm on a bit of a literary fiction kick, at least when it comes to purchasing, which, you know, say what you will about this, but I just think this book sounds so good, and that is I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay. And this book seems to be part dark academia, part introspective thriller, and part like harrowing tale. And in this story, we follow our main character Talia, and much of her adolescence was shadowed by a very tragic occurrence, and that is her best friend and roommate was murdered at her prestigious boarding school, which she attended for her entire high school career. Obviously, overcoming this extreme emotional trauma was something that took Talia a long time, and while the case itself and the eventual conviction of the school's athletic trainer was hotly debated online, Talia was just kind of interested in letting sleeping dogs lie, if you will. But fast forward to present day, as Talia is invited back to this very campus to teach a course, can't help but be drawn into this mystery once again. This is said to be a stirring investigation into collective memory and a deeply felt examination of one woman's reckoning with her past, a transfixing mystery at its heart. Timely, hypnotic, and populated with a cast of unforgettable characters. This just sounds like it's going to be so addictive and propulsive. I need to read this book. The next book I grabbed was How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This is this author's newest release, a very beloved author. I've read his The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying a Vampire, and in general, I find his writing style, despite it being horror and being very, very disturbing, to also be incredibly engaging. I have a few other of his books, and this one, being a new release, just obviously caught my eye when I was strolling around a bookstore and I could not help myself. And this story centers our main character Louise, and she has just heard the tragic news that her parents have passed away. And Louise does not want to go back to the family home. She's dreading it. She doesn't want to confront the ghosts of her family's past, see the remnants of her father's academic career and what her mother liked to collect, and basically say goodbye to the two people who knew and loved her most. Also doesn't want to see her brother, Mark, who, while she left home and found great success in her career, Mark has never left their small town and has kind of been constantly fired from job after job, greatly resents our main character. When she does arrive back in town and begins to work with Mark to fix up the house to get it ready to sell, they quickly realize that some houses do not want to be sold. I'm really curious about this book. I actually have a soft spot for haunted house stories, especially if they're more gothic and leaning. I also loved listening to the audiobook the last time I read one of his books, so I feel like I'll check out that direction as well. I'm curious about this one. I also feel like it'll be a great read when I'm craving something a little spooky, maybe when I'm trying to get into the fall mood, you know? All right, another box to open. I'm pretty sure I know what this is. I think it's a very anticipated pre-order, but let's see, shall we? Yes, I'm so excited about this book. This book is actually my IRL book club read. We had a little vote, but the winner was Burnham Wood by Eleanor Canton. Eleanor Canton is a very famous author. She won the Booker Prize with The Luminaries, which was another book I actually bought recently and added to my shelf. It is obviously a brand new release. It literally came out just a few days ago. The foiling on this cover is also stunning. What really calls out to me about this book is that it is definitely a literary fiction story, but also has kind of thriller leaning elements to it. I feel like I'm in this headspace right now where I like thriller elements combined to other genres. It's strange because I don't read a lot of thrillers by themselves, but when like a book has a thriller element to it, like I'm immediately more interested in reading it. Like historical fiction meets thriller, fantasy meets thriller, literary fiction meets thriller. I'm like, tell me more. And the setup and premise of this book sounds unbelievably strange. So this book is set in New Zealand, and after a landslide basically leaves a very sizable farm deserted, two different groups of people are looking to take it over. The first group is Burnham Woods, which is a guerrilla like farming group where they basically plant crops in uncultivated areas where no one will notice, but they're also struggling to break even. Also interested in this piece of land is an American billionaire who wants to build his like end times bunker here. And in the process of doing this, he actually runs into the Burnham Woods collective and begins to talk to their leader, Mira, and they begin to get kind of close in some capacity. This book, I think, is all about like conflicting morals and ideologies and if trust can be built and possibly the introduction of a common enemy. It sounds very strange. The premise is giving me like Desolate Island vibes with people who are ultimately going to spiral out of control and probably backstab each other. And for that reason, I'm very curious, you know, like Menu, like the Menu, perhaps, you know what I mean? Like obviously very different, but possibly similar vibes. I'm not sure. Next up, I got two surprise packages from Penguin. So I actually have no idea what's inside of these, so let's open them up. Oh, this is exciting. Okay, wow. The first book I see here is Anne Bishop's The Queen's Price, which is a Black Jewels novel. I love Anne Bishop. I've only read her Others series, which is like a supernatural, paranormal, urban fantasy series. I think the characters and the angst is fantastic. She obviously has many series, so I'm looking forward to add this one to my shelf. I, truth be told, cannot read the synopsis of this at all because this is like maybe the 10th book in this series that has come out. That being said though, let's read about it because I'm curious. So this is actually a dark fantasy series by Anne Bishop, and truthfully, once I finish filming this video, I'm immediately going to buy the bind up of the first 3 books. It's set in a fantasy world where 700 years ago, a Black Widow witch saw a prophecy come to life in her like web of vision. Now the Dark Kingdom readies itself for the arrival of a queen who will have enough power to rival even the High Lord of Hell himself, but she is young, not quite ready to take on the mantle of power, and still open to influence and corruption. Whoever controls the queen controls this power. So enters 3 men who are all 3 sworn enemies of each other, I think try to enter this game of politics. This is said to be a ruthless game of politics, intrigue, magic, and betrayal where weapons are hate and love, and the prize could be terrible beyond imagining. I'm already addicted, and there's a new book that's out now. I don't want to read it too much, but clearly there's a lot of books. Clearly this looks like it could be an addicting good time. I gotta read it. I gotta find out. Alrighty, let's open up the second secret package. I'm obsessed with the first one. Book is The New One by Evie Green. I think this is a thriller. This follows a family who, after a tragic accident, has left their rebellious teen daughter in a comatose-like state, but obviously things begin to spiral very much out of control from there. This sounds like a family thriller story. Just came out. Interesting. Alrighty, speaking of thriller, I actually have another like horror story. I know I have 2 horror books to show off in this video, but I had to grab this book. I mean, the cover itself is so striking, but also just how beloved it is. And that book is Our Share of Night. And this is actually a translated work, and the author is actually from Argentina. And this book came out, I think, originally in like 2019 and absolutely took like Latin America by storm. We're lucky enough that it got translated into English, and I could not be more excited to pick this book up. It is a gothic horror story that apparently is just going to absolutely upend your mind. So many twists and turns. I'm so curious about this. But in the story, we follow a father and a son, and they, at the beginning of this book, are on a bit of a road trip together. Before the start of this novel, the son's mother and this man's wife has passed away tragically, and their shared grief in some ways is bringing them closer together. They themselves are also on a journey because they are traveling to this woman's like ancestral home or clan, and this clan is like no other because for centuries this like secret society cult has been committing unspeakable acts in the pursuit of eternal life. Once they arrive, the young son kind of confronts his legacy that's been left to him, and this cult tries to pull him into its clutches. And the father, obviously in his desire to protect his son, flees, taking his young son with him, but obviously this clan is not going to let these 2 individuals go. This book apparently shifts between the 60s and London, and also in the aftermath of a brutal dictatorship in Argentina. I'm so curious about this. Obviously, this book is lauded on like every corner of the world at this point. The cover is so striking, and I think conceptually it just sounds like something I would really, really enjoy. Sylvia Moreno Garcia literally blurbed it. I just feel like this could be like a new all-time fave. Disturbing, cutthroat, but one I feel like I might not be able to put down either. The next book I bought is actually an ebook, so I have it on my Kindle here, but I'll also put a photo. But I also picked up All Systems Red by Martha Wells. I'm officially starting the Murderbot Diaries series, and I could not be more excited. Obviously, this is a very beloved and very long, yet at the same time kind of short series by Martha Wells. I think the first 4 is a collection of short stories. All Systems Red is only about 170, 180 pages, but I do believe full-length novels come later, but please correct me if I'm wrong. This is a sci-fi dystopian-esque story set in a future where everything is sort of run by the corporation. Missions, survey missions are all approved by the corporation, and the lowest bidder actually wins. So I'm pretty sure doing these surveys for this company is not something anyone wants to do. Alongside people going to these planets to conduct these surveys, they also send these sort of security bots to kind of keep an eye on everything and also protect them, if you will, but mostly kind of report back to the corporation. And this is where we meet our main character, Murderbot, who has been hacked. They, for some reason, have kind of lost their programming, and now they have gained consciousness, and Murderbot is, let's just say, shy, introverted, a little pessimistic, and really just wants to watch their soap operas and not really engage with anyone. But they also care about the humans that they're supposed to protect, and when things begin to kind of spiral out of control on the mission that they're engaging with on this planet, Murderbot sort of steps up and begins to interact with humans like they've never had to before. I really am excited about this one. I love any concept about like AI and humanity and like what does it mean to even be alive, you know what I mean? I think those topics can always be super interesting. I've also heard excellent things about the audiobooks for this series, so nevertheless, I'm just so thrilled to finally have a copy in my hands. And then the last book I picked up is The Whalebone Theater by Joanna Quinn, and this is a historical fiction story, I think set through a decent amount of time. We are introduced to our characters in 1928. In this story, we follow our main character, Christabel, and at the beginning of this book in 1928, as a child, she and like her entire household of friends her age stumble upon a carcass of a whale, and within this whalebone, the entire household, including Christabel, her sister Flossie, and the heir to the manor Digby, begin to create a theater where, fast forward to the outbreak of World War II, Christabel is a headstrong young woman, and Digby actually becomes spies for the British government and infiltrate Nazi-occupied France, where they will be participating in a much more dangerous form of play acting. I think this is interesting. I'm curious if it's going to be jumping forward and back in time, and I think paralleling like initially loving acting as this form of expression and having a moment moment of fun to obviously partaking in an incredibly dangerous situation for a government is kind of an interesting approach. So I'm curious about this. I got this on sale, as I do, at Barnes & Noble, and it had really strong reviews online. I love a historical fiction tale, so I'm hopeful about this one as well. Hey guys, those are all the books I've picked up recently. Let me know below some books you've gotten, as I would love to know, and I will see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye!